Hi. This is week 3 of Patrick Lecture 16, which is very interesting. It's theoretically about spiritual nourishment. And my read of the lecture, because of course I'm reading it before we get there, is I'm reading through this lecture on spiritual nourishment saying, yeah, yeah, yeah. And then I hit the middle and go, ooh, had no idea that you would go that deep that fast, Sir Guide. So this is the section that starts this new topic or related topic. And this section I entitled Willpower, Self-Will, and Inner Will. Now, this is a fairly common discussion item. It's been discussed in a large number of opportunities, different lectures, and so forth. And people are always saying, well, I'm not quite sure, and how do you tell, and so forth. And I find it absolutely fascinating that a relatively minor lecture that is not one of the top 10 or top 25 lectures that one would teach would have such an elegant, concise explanation of willpower, self-will, and inner will. So I'm going to make a short summary here. Willpower, number 1. The guide says you've all got it. So sorry you can't feel it. That's on you. You have the power. Every being was granted free will by the Creator. That's lecture 19, or 18, that's okay. But every sentient being has free will. Whether you choose to use it or not is up to you. It is easy to say, I don't have it, lay back and let the world happen. Doesn't mean you don't have willpower. It means you have decided not to use it. And the key here is that you decided not to use it. So willpower, when I observe human beings, and human beings are of a certain level of sentient being, when I observe human beings and they say, oh, I have no willpower, I have no this, I have no that, since we're all in the same cluster of development, I reinterpret this as I do not choose to see it. I do not choose to use it. I don't know how to use it, which is the result of choices I have made over the decades. But willpower, we all have it. And it takes willpower to deny that you have it. So when I work with people, and when I say work with, I mean when I meet people in the street, when I work with people in any capacity, it is not uncommon for them to say, not my problem, I couldn't help it, this. And what I look for is their desire to phrase it in a certain way. I look for their enjoyment of, I don't have the power, because that makes them unable to make a decision or change it. And the truth is, they want the decision to stay put. If they didn't want the decision to stay put, they'd move heaven and earth to change what was going on. So that's willpower. So putting that aside, now we're looking at self-will and inner will. Again, people often say, I can't sense my inner will. I offer a translation of that we can't feel inner will because it doesn't shout. Inner will, divine will, doesn't shout because it doesn't need to. And one would ask, yes, but there are problems on the planet. And the guide explains that the problems on the planet are created through collusion by all of us, and they are manifestations of false beliefs. The inner will, the divine will, is to transcend these false beliefs through experiencing the negative consequences, through understanding of what those consequences are, and getting to the point of knowing what the connection is so that you can let them go. The false beliefs, the holding on to negativity, that we must let it go because we have free will. So the inner will is perfectly aware of free will, perfectly willing to work with it, and has no deadline. Now, it has an inner knowing of where you are in your development, what is likely, what is probable, and different people will experience inner will in different ways. But I'm going to contend that inner will is a matter of listening, that you can ignore it or you can hear it. That is up to you. It takes a little willpower to do that. All of you have experienced a place where you tried too hard so that you almost drowned out the answer. And we can do that to inner will sometimes. What do we do that with? We do that with self-will. So inner will is the part of us that is aligned with what is good, right, true, honorable, just, and wonderful. Then there's self-will. Self-will is aligned with the ego. Now, while inner will understands that we continue, that we are an immortal being, and death is a phase change, but of not that much importance. The ego only exists on this particular level. My ego, named Jan, whatever Jan is, exists in this lifetime in a certain way. It's unlikely, highly unlikely, that I would be representative of my full spiritual being, and therefore I will put this costume off when I leave and possibly pick up another costume for another purpose or stand in myself. But my point is that self-will is connected to the ego, and the ego is in the here and now. And it is looking for success in this lifetime, knowledge in this lifetime, pleasure in this lifetime, a sense of having done the right thing in this lifetime. Now, all these things are admirable and good. They can connect in various ways to will, reason, and emotion, to the angelic aspects of personality, of wisdom, courage, and love. However, it is the demand that these manifest in a lifetime that is the problem. So self-will wants to see it now. Self-will wants to be gratified. It wants to feel the pleasure. It wants to know what is right. And it wants to feel its own power. So you have self-will wanting to serve the ego because that's all it knows, and inner will, which serves the divine. And these are at conflict. They are at conflict not because inner will is fighting, but because self-will is so short-sighted that it wants things at its own pace. There's a demand. I very often call this a tantrum. It's easier for me to feel it and imagine it as a tantrum, a lesser being, a less developed being, arguing with a more developed being, saying, but I want it now. And when I can feel that energy in myself, it makes more sense to me why I'm impatient, why I'm demanding, why I'm fearful, why I'm worried. So that's more self-will versus inner will. Now, inner will is aligned with not only God's will and spiritual law, but its life task. And its life task may be, relatively speaking, limited. My life task may be to learn something that sounds easy. It may be something that takes a while to learn, but doesn't set off fireworks. There's There's a thing on this platform where if I make certain hand gestures, I get balloons and fireworks because that's what the operating system set up, and I never turned it off. As annoying as it is on occasion, I have found it fun and entertaining, so I have left it on. That's the self-will in me. The divine will does not need fireworks. It does not need balloons. But the self-will likes it. It's not incompatible. It's not a bad thing, but they're not exactly the same goals. To some extent, you need to keep the ego entertained and happy because it has a task to do. It has a life task to perform. But the life task itself may not sound terrific. It may not float your boat. It may not seem inspirational by itself. And so the ego wants more. It wants a bit more flash, a little more drama, a little bit more pleasure, a bigger sense of accomplishment. So this is a place where the two may be in conflict because the inner will is saying, this would be enough. This would be absolutely fantastic if we could get this far. And the ego says, no, I want to go further. I want to expand. I want to experience, which is okay. And the self-will can advance the life task. We can accomplish more than we were meant to accomplish. The question is, are you doing that in an organic, natural sense, or are you forcing and pushing and trying for some invisible brownie point system? So that the inner will is aligned to the life task, and the self-will is aligned with seeing it now, understanding it now, appreciating it now. So that's what's within the core of this lecture that I fell in love with and decided why a lecture on spiritual nourishment was worth a month of everybody's time. So thanks for listening to this little summary. Appreciate it. And we're onwards to week 4. Thanks for listening.